Yo, yo, yo. We are live once again. Caribbean Currency Podcast, live segment, currency exchange, where we exchange currency. Not necessarily money, but currency's value. Anything of value is equal to currency in our book. Redman, what you saying, dog?
I cool it, man. Just still ruling. Can't
Ja-
complain.
That's the way, man.
Is today I'm on the
Yeah, today's Monday, dog.
rest in
Today's
peace to the
Monday.
Pope there today.
R.I.P. to the Pope. R.I.P. to the
Yeah, the
Pope. I
Pope
got a
there today.
question.
Somebody tell me, I was watching a Pope documentary and like the Pope there today. I was like, what are the odds I decided to watch this documentary
And
and
the
the
man
Pope
there,
dead?
don't
Yeah, the
watch
man
no
dead.
documentary,
I'm like,
okay? You hear me?
I ain't doing
Do
it,
me
my
that
son.
favor.
I don't want documentary. But
Hey, I always had a question that this is way off subject. The Pope, he that man not die virgins?
negative.
No.
Depends. Depends if that man come in church from young. Me ain't studying nothing. Man is money, no. So,
Man is I want to know. I want to know the man.
hey,
I'm like,
sneak a piece,
how?
my boy. Me ain't
You
even
think
matter
I think
if
of
you
it?
sneak a piece, you know. Yeah, sneak a piece. Boy, I ain't here to judge nobody. Sneak a
I
piece.
tell you, my
If
son.
you want to know, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
just
can't be
leave that
good for your
little.
mental health out there. Holding in and not for so much years. No man.
Yeah, bro. Well, I mean, you have to have faith in the Father still. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
them man probably got strong faith in the Father to be part of them could indoor. Like a monk. You know how them monk have discipline? Them man probably get
Yeah,
discipline too.
yeah, yeah. Shout
Yeah,
out.
so
You know what I
like
mean?
them
I can't be no
would
Pope. I
never
can't be nobody Pope. But shout out
nah
the Pope,
nah.
man. R.I.P. to the
Right.
Pope. For
Yes.
sure.
For real.
For sure. How your week was that?
My week was good. Couple little hiccups, but other than that, it was good, man. Let's try and get the
I
music together. Couple people
feel
drop
you.
in. You know what I mean? So let's try and get a show on the road for the new year.
Feel that. I
Yeah,
feel
that's
you.
all. Other than that, being safe.
I feel that. I feel you. Likewise.
Yeah.
Everything in motion, stay in motion. Gas stay in
Fa-
motion.
So what we
Gas stay.
talking about?
So today, man, is mental awareness month, and it is also autism month. So it was only
Mm,
fitting that we had a conversation with someone that
right,
represents the community in that field. So I felt
right.
like and what's wild is it had just dawned on me when I say, hey Ray, we need to get on the pod. I didn't
Right.
even know it was mental awareness month and mental health awareness month and autism month. Like, you know what I
So
mean?
you
It
like
just
a
not
little
when it was done.
crapshoot.
Yeah,
Yeah, just coincidence.
yeah,
You know, when you dive with the person once, I was thinking to myself, oh, like, I know that person was like very ecstatic when they achieve, like when they graduate with their PhD
hmm,
and become a clinical psychologist.
yeah,
And I wonder if they know that I feel just as joyous to know somebody with a
yeah,
PhD.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, they be telling me train them all the time. I know smart people, you know. You check all my friend them dumb. That's why I be
Yeah,
doing dumb shit all the time. Me,
I feel you. I feel
don't
you.
do. I know
Yeah,
smart
man.
people.
Fuck,
Yeah,
fuck. And then not only that, she's the
yeah.
wife to one of my best friends. So
Right.
it's only
No,
fitting. You know what I mean?
it's only
So
fitting. They
without
say
further ado, man.
nepotism, guys. Okay,
Uh-uh.
it's not nepotism. It just happened to be that way.
No, it just happened. My boy, she
You
on
know?
us, she on the seat right there. With all the
Yeah.
work that she's done in the
Yes.
community
Definitely.
between the
Definitely.
USBA and the BVA, shoot, she on the seat. And honestly, we were hoping that we could have do a in person live, you know what I mean? To really, but
Right.
just schedule confliction and all that we couldn't do it. So then we had to do
That have
that.
been going
And
on
we
a
didn't
lot
want to
lately, man. A lot
postpone,
of sketch predictions.
but yeah. And we didn't want to
Yeah.
postpone the conversation any longer just because we couldn't all be in the same place at
Right.
the same
Right.
time. So that's why we were like, yo, we
Right.
gotta pull the trigger on this thing, man. So
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
further ado, man, let's bring on my friend. We went to high school together. Man, I know this girl so much. I know this woman so much years. Good friend of mine. And then she ended up marrying my partner. Like my boy. On top of that.
Yeah.
So I don't call her my Dr. Sis, man. Let's bring on Dr. Michelle Martin Dash Dowe. We're gonna say Dash Dowe because she's a Martin before she's a Dowe.
Right.
Michelle, what you say?
Evening. Hey.
What's
I want
happening?
to
How are
ask you
you?
a question. Did you
Boy.
struggle with like keeping your last name? Was there like an internal struggle, like keeping my last name?
No,
We added
you know,
dash, or you going straight? Oh,
we have a family joke. They say I don't
right.
only use dough when it's beneficial. So,
Hey, but why not? I don't use
so
it
I
to
don't blame
yeah.
you.
be
So my
evil.
name today, I'm Michelle Martin. When I got to talk to like the governor, then I'm
Yeah,
Dr. Doe.
Dr. No. Yeah. I don't
that's
blame you at all.
hey, that's real. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good
Thank
to
you
see
for
you
having me.
accomplished. You know what I mean? That's a good thing to see you accomplished. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you grew up from small with and you see in high school and they go through their adult journey and accomplished.
Right.
It's really like a gratifying thing to see. So congratulations to and your success and achievements. I want to say that
Thank
to you.
you. Thank you.
Facts, man. I just want to echo that. I um I remember talking to Tito a couple of years, a lot of years back, and he like, yo, I gotta go check on Michelle, man, cause she having a tough time, and she only by herself in school, and da 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 da. Da. To transition from that to where you are now, I just super
Man,
super proud of you, man.
thank you.
Right.
Those who know. It
Yeah,
was not
yeah,
an
yeah.
easy road.
It
Yeah.
wasn't easy at all. At all, at all, at all. So, Michelle, let me just start it off, man. Tell the people a little bit about yourself. You know what I mean? Your upbringing, what you're into, what you do, your title, all that good stuff. I give you the
And
floor.
your alma mater. And your alma mater.
Of
The most
course.
Don't
important.
Of course. So I'm so elated to be here, first of all. And you guys are sharing all these sentiments about me, but I will say the same about the two of you. We all grew up in the same halls of Charlotte Amalie. We've
Mm-hmm.
seen a lot of things, but we
Mm-hmm.
certainly can say that's what molded us and made us who we are today. So I am
right.
proud of both of you as well. But
Thank you.
yes, I came from Charlotte Amalie High School, went on to Florida A&M University where I did my bachelor's in psychology. I have a master's in educational psychology and behavior science from Tampa. And then I did my doctorate in clinical psychology at California Southern University. After
Mhm.
that, I came home. I worked in the government for a while in so many entities. I took an entry level position. A lot of people don't know this. But when I
Mm-hmm.
returned home, I had the option of working in grants with Department of Health, which would have paid me a really nice salary, or what I would say an entry level position at MCH as a
Mm-hmm.
coordinator. And I
Okay.
prayed about it. And I said, you know what? The people and the relationships that I would make in this entry level position, I'm going to do that.
All
And
right.
that had been the platform to me networking and a lot of the programs that I have today. So I ended up working in many sectors in St. Thomas. Life kind of transitioned where I started doing some work in the BVI, and that's where I opened up my first practice, Therapy to Thrive Psychological Services, right before COVID. But again, God has been so good that Therapy to Thrive is thriving. We're one of
Amen.
the clinics who has one of the only comprehensive healthcare for children with autism. So I'm very proud of that. And after I got pregnant during COVID, I was
Mhm.
like, man, I'm spending a lot of time back home. We need resources for our local VI mothers. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how
Right.
Helping Hands in St. Thomas got started. So I've been juggling the
Awesome.
two.
Awesome. So, question: Helping Hands and Therapy to Thrive. They're two different businesses. I know they're located two
Absolutely.
different places, but do they
Yeah.
offer like the same services? Just tell a little bit about the difference in both
Yeah.
of them.
So people just know me as a mental health provider. So they assume when I came to St. Thomas, that's what I would be doing, but not at all. When I got pregnant with my son, again, it was COVID, and I didn't realize it. We had
Right.
so many limited resources. And I'm different. My
Right.
stepmother is Dr. Sproul, one of the
Mhm.
only, if not still the only, high risk OBGYN in the territory. Then I have my husband, first cousin, Dr. Pichelty, who's also a boss OBGYN. And
Mm-hmm.
then my stepmother's business partner, Dr. Lloyd, who was my doctor on record. So I know people if I
Yeah.
had any
Right.
complications. But there was so many things like breathing classes and lactation support and just postpartum depression intervention. I realized we didn't have any of that. So I said once I caught myself, I was going to do just that. And that's what
Right.
Helping Hands is. It's more of a
Mm.
family clinic. So we're comprehensive. I have a lot of providers in the States who fly
Mhm.
down and do a lot of the different services. And then in the BVI, that was supposed to be just an autism program with behavior
Mm.
therapy, but that transformed into so many different areas. I do counseling for children, adults, families. I have a contract where I do co-parenting classes. And then we have a team of speech therapists, occupational therapists, and behavioral therapists who fly in from Atlanta, Jamaica, St. Thomas to provide services.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So my next question, what what led you to wanting to be in a field where you actually helping people? Because in the VA, in the Virgin Islands, in the Caribbean, we don't prioritize mental health like that. That's
Yeah.
not a
Right.
priority of ours. We
Right.
just,
Yeah.
if something bad, you suck it up. Okay, we ain't crying. There's a man,
Right.
stop crying. Even little girls at a young age, our parents, we want me to give you something to cry for. That was
Right.
the
Yeah.
culture. So
Be
what?
tough.
Yeah, be tough. Hold
Right.
it in. Like don't let her out. So like to be of the culture and to come out of it and be like, you know what, I gonna do this thing in this field and I gonna champion this. What was your motivation to actually do that?
Boy. So I fell into this by accident.
Mm,
I went off to college to be a lawyer, and they told me to be a lawyer, I needed to major in psychology and political science. So that was the
mm,
plan.
Right.
And as I get to college, I did some recap and I was like, Self, you don't like to argue. I don't like writing no essays. This is not a good fit for me. So I
Right.
called my dad and I told him that I just gonna major in psychology. And he hung up the phone on me. He called me
Jeez.
back. He called me back. He said, Listen, hey, if I gonna pay for you to do this thing, you have
Right.
to get a doctorate in it because they don't make
Wow.
much money. So I said,
Right.
well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to volunteer to the local high school in Tallahassee. We had a high school adjacent to the college called FAMU DRS.
Yeah.
So I volunteered with some at risk youths. And what Kyle and Redman has not said in this discussion, I was no slouch in high school.
yeah, fact, fact, big
I
fact.
myself had behavioral issues.
Wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So you could beat up them girl. Sure, I
Right.
was
Yeah.
fighting.
You know,
So
I was
when
fighting.
so when I
the
was speaking with
transformation is real, right, guys?
Yeah, man. And then her mother used to teach at the school. You can imagine her mother was a ROTC, the JROTC instructor. So she come in
correct,
school in a military uniform every day.
correct,
And then
correct.
military uniform kind of intimidating to us kids at the time. There she in the
Right.
army. And then imagine
Yeah.
she marching down to the main office, can Michelle just saying
Right.
nothing.
And still
Right.
make it. Still make it. But I'm gonna talk about the psychology about that later. But
Uh-huh.
Right.
I did have an opportunity to work with the at-risk youth at that school, and that's when I said I could do this for the rest of my life. Like those kids, they understood me. I understood them because I lived it, and
Yeah,
it's been on since then.
that's
Right.
awesome. That's awesome. So I like that, especially being thrown into it. You didn't plan for it. You
No.
wanted to be a lawyer. You realize I suck at arguing, bro. I don't even like arguing. Why would I do this?
Right.
And then like you were like, okay, boom, I gonna do this here. I like the fact that your father actually said, listen, if we gonna do this thing, we gonna do this thing.
Right.
Me, I in financial literacy and I talk to these kids all the time about career paths. And I'm like, listen, you have to choose a career path and see it through. A lot of my clients today in the 40s and they paying for student loans that they ain't even finished their degree on.
Yeah.
Or either they switch and they're doing something different. So I always tell them like, yo, sit down and really figure out what it is I want to do and
Yes.
then see it through. So kudos to
Right.
your dad for saying, listen, we ain't gonna just be some mediocre. We ain't being mediocre in this field. We gonna see it all the way through. I relate to what you say when you say you got thrown into it because just sitting on with them you and hearing their stories and interacting with them, that let you know like, yo, I like this. This feels
Right.
good. And I
Right.
helping people on top of that. You know, so imagine getting paid for doing the thing that you actually love. You know, so kudos to your pops for actually seeing that and supporting you. Because here, one, we know lawyers and doctors don't make money. All the
Right.
psychologists and me know not, but I don't know no psychologists. I
Right.
never
Right.
went to none, so I don't know what their salaries are. I know the doctor that I don't go to when I broke my foot, he don't charge me a lot of money. I ain't never been to
Yeah.
no psychologist to know what they don't charge. So that's dope that you actually broke that mold and really went in that direction. You have any psychologists in your family prior to this?
No. No.
No.
No.
So there was no blueprint
And
for you
I'll
to
be
follow.
honest, many of them did not know what I did, and a lot of them
Mm-hmm.
still don't know what I
You
do.
know,
When you picture what I do, they just assume somebody's on a couch talking to me all day. Those who know me know like I'm in the trenches for
yeah,
real. Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
no, they don't know
I
what
want.
I do at all.
I want a personal question. Well, not personal, but intrusive question. Because I often wonder this. One time, I see my I used to see this psychologist, and I went. I was in Philadelphia, and I went to the grocery store, and I saw my psychologist in the grocery store.
Mhm.
And the first thing that comes to my mind is like, this mother skunk know I crazy, you know. Like this person in the store here, no fuck about me. Nobody else do.
Right.
So being in a voice islands and being so small, is it
Uh,
hard to get people to open up because we so small and they might see you? Or did I be like, hey doctor? 'Cause I wouldn't be like, hey doctor. I like this.
No,
Don't t-
it's
don't
a really, really good question. So I'll tell you the two different avenues. So in the BVI, it worked for me. And anyone, both of y'all have BVI roots. Y'all
mhm.
know.
I get my bilang account. I
Yeah.
bilang.
Yeah.
I
just
ain't no
gay,
more
They,
just
BPI
gay.
route. Me know what he
they
dealing with, but
are
I don't
very,
get my bilang account.
you don't talk your business outside of the house. They're
Facts.
very
Right,
conservative when it comes to that. And this whole mental health thing is very new.
right.
But I must say, they like me because I am a belanger as well.
Mm.
But
Right,
they won't run into me in the grocery store because
Yeah,
I
right,
don't overnight. They're very rare. So that works
yeah.
for
right.
me. In St. Thomas now, where I grew up and I'm from, many of the families allow the children to come to me.
Ah.
Very rare I'll get adults. The adults will come with their child and they'll open up with the child. But one on one, not so much, but it's okay because I refer
Mhm.
out. So it works.
Mm.
Okay,
But yeah,
okay, okay.
Okay.
So you think it's because you just known in the community, you grew up in a community, you think that's a thing with us in our community, like there's this stigma that if you're going, and I told a person this one time, I say, even if your car is running good, you still have to take it for a checkup.
correct.
So going to a psychologist doesn't necessarily mean something is wrong with you. You might just want to be more optimal in ways and maximize your
Right.
potential. So can you speak and trying to like erase the stigma of okay, you only coming to me because you're crashing or
And
this is
Redman,
always wrong.
I'll be honest, in the last decade, it's been
Mm,
amazing. A lot of the millennials are very open. They post, they tag me, they tag my business. They have these hashtags. They are amazing. It's that baby boomer generation, which are now, the
Mm-hmm.
grandparents who still have that stigma. But the millennials have been amazing. A lot of outreach. They've been desensitizing a lot of the need to come to therapy. I have a lot of clients who they see me as their friend. If something great happens or if something traumatic happens, I'm the first person they think about. So they've been doing amazing, but it's just kind of decreasing that gap of the different generations and what they perceive as a mental health condition and why one may come to counseling. Some people just come because they need direction for college. They want to pick out a major. And some people,
Right.
someone has died, so they have grief counseling. So there's so many different areas, but people come for different things.
So
I have a
since parents, one more question,
go
Kyle.
ahead,
So
go.
parents must come with their child. That means my mother could come with me. Cause what we need to get to the bottom of is after I pass out, why she keep beating me. Like that is something that I just need to. I need a psychologist to get in her brain to figure out when she see me pass out, why she keep going with the belt.
No,
At
and
this point, you should stop.
that's why I love being home, because one of my favorite sessions are family. So it
Mhm.
would start off as me and you, Redman, talking, and then we learn that you have this trauma that you're trying to
Right.
heal from. The fact that
Right.
we live on an island, you could call your mother in on your session and we could hash
Right.
it out. And those
Yeah.
sessions usually are beautiful because we weren't taught to talk about that elephant in the room. We just did it. We know
Right.
people who've been abused physically and sexually. We know people who had drug issues, and we just never spoke on it. It's just culturally unacceptable. But again, we'll have people like you, Redman, who are dabbing into therapy, and they will invite others. And so that's how you decrease a lot of the stigma as well.
Okay. 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 Go
I'm
ahead.
going to shift a little bit, but I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole. But you mentioned like a lot of these people are your friend, or they see you as their friend. When something great happened in their life, they call you. When something horrible happened in their life, they call you. I My work ain't on the levels of yours as far as when it comes to that level of mental health intimacy. You know what I mean? I ain't that intimate with my clients when it comes to what it is they're going through in their life. It's just their
Mhm.
finances or whatever.
Right.
But in doing that small part of my job, um, and having that small level of intimacy when it comes to what it is I do, sometimes something traumatic would happen in their life as far as like, hey, I got denied for this thing, I got denied for this house, I got denied for this apartment complex, and I crying and wherever the case may be. And that'll be like, damn, I just had to fix your credit. Like, what you want
Right.
me to say? So it'll start to feel heavy for me, right? But people
Right.
ain't calling me to tell me, hey, my father just dead, or hey, this happened, or that happened, that happened.
Right.
How do you manage, Michelle, balancing all of that, all this heavy weight from all your clients, whatever you have going through in your personal life, and still being professional enough to give these people what it is they need to help them out?
So it comes with balance and boundaries. When I first started out in the field, I was working in Miami, and y'all could imagine what the culture looked
Mhm.
like in Miami. It was some heavy stuff, serious abuse issues.
Right.
So I will say over time, I've became a bit more desensitized to certain
Yeah.
topics
Right.
because I've seen some real tragedies. So for me, I often, it took some time, but I'm very adamant about boundaries. Now that I have a family of my own, I'm with my patients 100%. But if I need to take some time off, I'm going to do that because I have seen where it did weigh on me. There was times
Mhm.
where I was working in a prison, and just like you mentioned, Kyle, like I was in a situation where their life literally was
Yeah.
in my hand. If I wasn't submitting their paperwork time there or what have you, that's another 90 days. You know you're gonna get rocked when they see
Damn.
you
Yeah.
walking around in the
Yeah.
prison.
Gee.
You can play. And
Yeah.
so I saw how I started to have anxiety, my mood
Right.
shifted. So I had to check myself and start to
Hmm.
put some boundaries in place because as a clinician, you don't always have somebody to talk to because people look to you for advice.
Yes. Which leads to my next question. I I is a big fan of Sopranos. I used to watch Sopranos a lot.
Mhm.
And the mafia boss for Sopranos, Tony Soprano, he used to have anxiety attacks. And
Right.
he started to go to therapy. He didn't understand what it was. And he like, yo, as I'm my boss, I can't be just patching out when something happened to me or whatever. When I go through these phases or whatever. And then
Right.
somebody said, hey, you need therapy. You need to go see a psychologist. He started going to therapy, but he's a my boss, so nobody could know because they think he ratted. So that was big. That
Right.
was heavy on him, and he had to do it secretly. and he was dumping so much on his therapist that she would then dump on her therapist. So being in a field where you actually, a therapist, and having all these people come to you, how important is it for you to have a therapist that you could balance that life out with?
Right. Well, I don't have a therapist, but I do have self care. And I'm going to tell y'all a joke. And this I
Mhm.
tell my
I need
patients.
a therapist to talk to Jesus. Don't talk to another therapist.
Yeah,
Leave
yeah.
God be your therapist.
It's a ticklish thing. So I
Yeah.
don't dabble into that. But
That's like my priest going to talk to another priest. No,
it's not right,
take my
right?
message to Jesus.
Confidentiality.
Okay?
But I always tell my clients, especially men, when I was doing my doctorate degree, they wanted us to do 15 sessions of therapy on our own to see how it is to be
Right.
on the opposite side of the couch. So at the time, my now husband was my then boyfriend. And I
Right.
had wanted to rot him so bad, but I wanted it done professionally. So I
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
set up a couples counseling session.
Oh,
Me and Tito.
emphasis on set up.
He would have never came if I told him this is a couple therapy session. So I told him this is for school. I need you to come in. So we there, I telling the therapist all our business now. From what I think he doing, from what he doing, the whole rigmarole. Tito shut down that session. When I tell her you, when we were done, you know who the problem was?
Uh, you.
Me, the clinician. When Tito was done, he like dropped the mic and walk out. And then the doctor looking at me like, yeah, you crazy. I thought it was the issue. So I to say, I never went back to therapy because I realized it's never the same playing field. Any clinician is
Right.
going to look at me differently because they expect me to know better and do better.
Ah,
Right.
I have
I
a
see.
colleague, I have two colleagues who I would throw ideas around if I need advice, but
Yeah.
I don't have a therapist. No, I kind of have to work through those things myself. So, one of
Okay.
the most detrimental situations I've been in was about 3 years ago, where a client of mine who was very dear to my heart, I speak about this story all the time. She was involved in a boating accident. She was my first patient when I opened up my doors in the BVI. And
Mhm.
they couldn't find her for days. And then when they found her, she was unresponsive and passed away. But her son, who is now 5, he survived.
Ay,
That
ay, ay.
boy found him floating in the water in the BVI at night. So y'all can't tell me that boy isn't destined for greatness. But I
Yeah.
say all of that to say, through all of my time working as a clinician, that really mashed me up. I've
Mm-hmm.
dealt with grief many times, but Red Man, like you say, you become so close and so intertwined. I've
Right.
been with her through so many channels in life, and
Right.
that was one time that I got closer to a higher being because I needed an outlet for that. It was hard for me to see young women as patients again because it was triggering for me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
that was certainly a situation that I had to work through professionally.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's good to know that the person that is trying to help with through our imperfections in a healthy way also has imperfections. So it feels like you're never talking from a place of above me, but
Correct.
humanity. You see what I'm
Correct.
saying? And
Correct.
just having the ability to help me process my own thoughts. What I want to know is, I will ask these crazy questions. I just want to know. Nothing has changed. What is it that if I tell you, you're obligated by law to alert the authorities?
If you're a danger to yourself or others. So that's
Hmm.
why I tell people, sometimes culturally, and we need to talk a little bit about that too, misdiagnosing of our local people. That's a whole other issue. But
Mm-hmm.
culturally, you know how we talk. Like we upset and son, I'll kill he or I'll kill she.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I'm so angry, I just want to die. As a clinician, we don't take those things lightly. I am a mandated reporter, and I have to, if I can't call law enforcement, I have to escort you to the hospital. Did you know that? I have to
Right.
escort someone to the hospital if they make those reports. So I always tell people when they're in the midst of being angry, I'm like, you really want to kill somebody or you just say it? Because then I got to know where we gonna go. Yeah.
That's the thing to do after this appointment.
I feel like the couples therapist. I feel like the couples therapist asked my ex girlfriend if she had really want to kill me. You check, and I feel like he should have like follow up because that girl used to kill me. I mean, I ain't dead, but still,
Mhm.
but I now I find it
You
nowadays.
can't take those things
Himself got
lightly.
reported. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
so you find it that culturally, like, and we said it, culturally, we speak a certain way. Is it important? I mean, we talked about this offline. You said that there's a lot of people in your field, but they're not from home. Do
Right.
you feel like it's important? And not to say that they don't do a good job or they can't do the job, but do you feel like there's this added understanding with you from home, dealing with your people from home, especially when you could like see
Absolutely.
mannerisms and verbiage and just how we express certain things. Like tell
Absolutely.
somebody, I could say fuck you 50 million ways and they all mean something different. And you might not be able to tell which one it is because you're not really from where I'm from to
Right.
know that I'm either joking, kidding, serious, hurt, sad by
Right.
using one word. So you feel, can you speak to even just how you feel, but having a therapist that is from home locally with the understanding of how we were raised, our
Yes.
upbringing, traumas and stuff like that. Because Michelle, I know you went through the same thing all of us went through. They ask cut,
Right. Right.
blase, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying?
No, the
And talk
culture.
a bit
Sneeze and
about the
might turn them to bad in the future.
misdiagnosis,
Yes.
misdiagnosis of the culture too. You just mentioned that
Yeah, go
earlier.
ahead. Yeah.
The cultural component is dynamic. Outside of the language, our verbal, oral, and physical body language, there's genetics. So me being
Mm,
from here, I can be like, yeah, my son, red man father, he
mm.
had an anger issue. So there's a
Okay.
likelihood he's not schizophrenic. He has an anxiety disorder or antisocial personality disorder.
Right,
So there's
right,
so many variables. I'll give you a prime example as to what's happening now. There's two. So for adults, we have a population of Black men who are being diagnosed as schizophrenic. And what schizophrenia is probably the people who you may see on the side of the streets who are chronically mentally ill, who would need medication to function for the rest of their life. That's typically what a schizophrenic may present themselves to the untrained eye. So with that being said, if I'm not from here, I wouldn't know. I know Kyle been smoking since we were in school, and he's not schizophrenic. What he's experiencing is what we would call substance-induced psychosis. So this is where
Mm-hmm.
it's ticklish now. Kyle smoked some bad weed, and now he's presenting himself as schizophrenic. But
Mm.
when this person who don't know nothing about Kyle, but what they see, they're gonna give
Mm.
him medication for schizophrenia. So now what could have been treated short term will now become a chronic mental health condition. And that
Mm.
certainly has been affecting our community. Then
I
there's
hear
the
you.
other piece, like learning issues. There's this lady, Shakur is her last name. She wrote this book called Keep My Black Boys Out of Special Education. And what she
Right.
learned was in Florida, they had this standardized test called the FCAT. And they
Yeah.
looked at fourth grade inner city youths. And the state of Florida determined how many prison cells they should make off of how many kids failed the fourth grade FCAT. Their
Right.
thinking was if you can't function on a fourth grade level, there's a high likelihood you're going to rob somebody, kill somebody, or become a menace to society, which we know isn't true. We know
Mhm.
that.
Right.
But
Right.
culturally, if we aren't aware of that data and statistics, this is the image that they're presenting themselves. So I always tell my moms, especially moms of children of color, especially children of color who are males, you have to advocate for them. You have to.
Okay.
Facts.
Makes
I
sense.
I that hit home for me because I in my line of work, I do understand how attractive being an athlete, entertainer, that type of vibe is to our kids, right? Super
Right.
attractive, but it's not that likely. How
Right.
likely is it that you're gonna be the next Tyrann or the next pressure or the next, you know what I mean? It's possible. It's just not likely, bro. Okay. So what I used to struggle with is outside of those guys, who going into the who going to these kids and letting them know like, yo, you could be doing something different that ain't necessarily that, but you could still keep true to who you are culturally and still be successful in life. I used to take so much
Right.
issue when these people bring in guys from Wisconsin and all over the place and putting them in front of our kids, somebody that don't look like us, don't sound like us, never been through what it is we've been through, and telling them they could do XYZ and they could do this because they did it. And it's like,
Correct.
bro, whatever your pathway is to do that, theirs one gonna be different. You don't know the obstacles that we have here in our community that will hinder me from getting weighties you want to get. So it's very, very important that we have professionals from our community that's doing this type of important work to help our community because what you just explained when it comes to misdiagnosis, that's wild because that's crazy. I mean, it's crazy to me, but it's so understandable how it could happen because they don't know. The
Correct.
professionals don't know. So they can just do their job and just write what it is they see. And God knows how much people before Michelle started were this misdiagnosed for some
Yeah.
shit that they
Oh,
really
yeah.
didn't have.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
A lot of people in special education who should not be. Absolutely.
That's
So
rough.
speaking of that education and you had genetics. Now I have two daughters, right? And when it comes to school, one take their mother, like she go to class, doing what she's supposed to do, doing her homework, all that other stuff. The other one take after me, like she's smart, but school just ain't really like as of important.
Right.
I would surmise if you were their therapist, it would have been easier for you to pick up which one took or which one genetically, as far as their attention span and stuff like
Right.
that. Do you deal with kids territory as far as how they approach school and why they're struggling with school? Because I don't think most kids in school struggle from a grade standpoint is because they're intellectually challenged. It's just it's not attractive to them, or it's not, the school isn't fashioned in a way that keeps them engaged. So can you speak on that?
Yes. So there's two things that contribute to who we are: genetics and environment. So I always say, and I hate to put it this way, but the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor. What I mean by that is if you go to people who are what we would consider upper class or even upper middle class, they can afford certain resources and exposure. So child may look at education a little bit more different because it's more tangible. Your kids, both of you guys, well, Kyle, your kids are in St. Croix, but Redman, your kids are in the States. So when they
Mhm.
hear like science and history, it's exciting for them because they could actually see it. They can go to a museum and find it
Mhm.
interesting and engaging. While our lower income children, they don't have access to that. They don't know
Right.
what the Washington Monument looked like, and they could care less about it because it's not tangible to them. We have a lot of programs now for STEM, but for a long time we had nothing. So being interested in the sciences was very rare. So if you have a student, and let's say we'll use any school in a rough area on St. Thomas, school may not be exciting because they did not have an environment that was stimulating to them. And then we
Right.
have to now build momentum because just like you said, Redman, they may present themselves like they have a learning issue, but do they? No, they're probably bored, and their relationship with the teacher probably wasn't a healthy one. So we have to encourage parents from very early on. You have to find a program that speaks to your child. Some kids will benefit from a Montessori program. Some kids
Right.
need structure, need to sit down. So you need to find the benefit. And if they came to counseling, and let's say they had all these resources and they were exposed to everything, then I'll say, okay, what is our end goal? How old are you, first of all? If you're in high school or middle school, what do we really want to do? Because college ain't for everybody. You could have a very successful career doing almost anything now. Oprah said one message which I love, which was they asked her what made her successful. She found what she was good at and she became the best at it. So
Right.
once you find your gift and your talent, as a parent, we need to mentor and nurture it. And those kids, once you push into their gift, Kyle, you mentioned people at 40 years old not knowing what they want to do, kind of just figuring things out. You got to find your purpose. And I just
Mm-hmm.
did an entry about that earlier. Once you find your purpose and your gift and your family is encouraging and supportive of that, you could move mountains. So that's what separates those who are successful in school and those who are just struggling and getting by, is that extra support and environment.
Okay.
What you just say resonates a lot because, especially when you say find your purpose. Like my message would be, you have to do something that you're passionate about, or else you ain't gonna be interested and you're gonna just quit.
Correct.
Chasing money as opposed to chasing passion. Whenever something get hard, you're gonna be like, this ain't worth it, and you're gonna quit, and you're gonna just constantly be
Right.
starting over, constantly be starting over, chasing the next bag, chasing the next money, bright idea that gonna bring you, that gonna make you rich. But the one thing that doesn't fail is finding your passion, finding your purpose, monetizing that. That's when
Right.
you wouldn't work another day in your life. You're gonna feel like work because you're doing something that you love and you're impacting others along the way. You spoke about the kids in school and stuff. I One of my favorite shows, another one of my favorite shows, Billions. Red man, you know Billions. And
Yeah, I turn you on to it. Just go ahead and just give me the credit. Like, I turn us on
you
to it,
turn
man.
me on to that, but
Oh,
nonetheless.
Jesus
And
Christ.
nowadays, I don't watch that much TV. I used to
Well,
because I was overseas. I had a heap of time on my hands. No, I don't really watch that
right.
much TV. But it was one of my one of my favorite shows because it's about a Wall Street mogul. Like he's a big Wall Street
Right.
billionaire making all his money, and what he has in his company that's different from a lot of others. He has an in-house psychologist that all his employees and everybody that their job is to just punch these numbers and make the company money. They don't got to go there and talk to him, to her, sorry,
Her.
as far as, I mean, what going on with you? Anybody struggling with anything? He understood that if these man good mentally, they gonna make me a lot of money.
Correct.
So he
Correct.
hired the best in-house psychologist, and she was so effective that the company was doing so good. Still, all of that to say, education is so important to us. Is there, and I correct me if I'm wrong. I don't recall there being psychologists that's in the schools that's in-house psychologists. And if that was possible, or is that a thing, how effective do you think that would be in mentoring and shaping our kids early in school before they go into adulthood?
So there's more recognition now. Growing up, you're right. We did not have a psychologist assigned to the school. We had guidance counselors, and let's be real about it. We had how many students in Charlotte
A lot, a
collectively?
lot.
800 and change.
Yeah, it felt like a
Uh,
thousand,
yeah.
maybe
Yeah,
too much
Yeah.
8 to 1,000. Yeah,
documented. They were there, but they weren't like that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if we have four guidance counselors for 1,000 children,
Yeah,
they have to deal with schedules. That's mostly what they dealt with. Helping us pick our classes, finding colleges, attendance, if you're
yeah.
truant or what have you. How many kids get to really build a relationship with this person, first of all? Because a lot of people didn't even know who their guidance counselor was. So
Facts.
one, find this person, build a relationship, and have at least 30 to 45 minutes to speak with them, unrealistic. So our public school kids are already at a disadvantage because we did not have that resource available. And then culturally, it was frowned upon. So even if you did speak to that person, you might get beat when you go
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
Tell him my business.
you
Tell
do
him
that.
my business, for my son.
So it was not a readily available resource, and that's why we had so much trauma. Y'all remember? I mean, we gonna address the elephant in the room.
Go
Growing
ahead.
up in our time, we saw some things that we should have not been
No.
exposed to.
Facts.
Ninth grade, Kylie was ninth grade or 10th grade when they had the riot, when the
Yeah.
teachers put on a strike. Like these
Yep.
is
Yep. Yep.
real stuff. We saw
Yeah.
kids who almost died in front of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
traumatic. We
Yeah.
became sensitized to it because that's just a way of life. That's what was
Thank
going on
you.
at that time, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not healthy. And
It's
so
not
what
happy.
happened is we have a population of very unhealthy adults. And then
Mm-hmm.
these adults now have children. And you see how the
Children.
cycle continue?
Yeah,
Mm.
man.
It's traumatic. And then you'll go to a school that they don't have the funds, and these are like private schools. They probably don't have the funds to hire a full-time psychologist, but they recognize the need. So they have a contract with these people. And the parents who have the money, they could pay for this psychologist to have sessions with their child. And so those are the phone calls as a therapist you technically will get because these parents recognize the need. They know how
Mm-hmm.
beneficial it is to have counseling and they sign their child up with no issue. So you could certainly see the difference. Education is key and knowledge is power.
Yeah. You
Let me,
hit on something as far as the traumas we saw growing up as kids, and we were talking about it well, last week in our home, where we were talking about how the nickname for our middle school was
but yeah,
Vietnam.
yeah,
Vietnam. Like when you graduate elementary, all the older heads telling you, "Oh, you graduate?
yeah.
Are you ready for Vietnam? Yeah, get ready for Vietnam. You get Vietnam?
You
Miss,
12
so
years
you might
old, you got ready for Vietnam.
imagine being 12 years old. He's man grooming you to get ready for Vietnam. In 12, I was 12 years old when I see man getting stabbed. When I
Right,
see man leaking on the ground. When I see man getting beat
Right,
up to a pulp.
right.
You know, growing up in the ghettos, you see man get shoot in front of you, and the ground bleed and everything. And like you say, we so desensitized to it, right? My son, even though my son ain't grew up in the hood like I grew up in, you ain't in a village in St. Croix,
right,
waiting to get a ride. Big shootout, somebody drop next to him. So the gift and the cost of the of being in a small community, yeah, it's small and everybody look out for each other, all that good stuff. But then the negative part is when stuff like that start to happen, it's so close that you could be impacted, or
Correct,
anybody close to you could be impacted. You
correct.
know, so the traumas that the traumas that we encountered growing up is going to be different from the traumas that our kids go through, yes, but there's still some level of trauma. How do you, as a psychologist, adjust? You know, like cause I looking at it like, okay, boom, we grew up from Nintendo, now we have PS5. So in your work line of work, you have to evolve with the times as well, or else you ain't gonna be able to reach these people. So how do you manage to do that in your line of work?
You have to meet these kids where they're at. So, and Kyle, you came, we have a Saturday program on St. Thomas for boys and girls. Youngest are about 5, and we go up to 18. And obviously, we break them down by age. But we have a team, and that team, I handpick them, and by the grace of God, they have been the most perfect fit. Why?
Awesome.
Everybody real and everybody from here.
Yeah.
Everybody's a product of these same schools. We all came from the different neighborhoods. So we know
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. We
Mm-hmm.
understand the Bavoni and Ras Valley beef, where it
Mm-hmm.
started, how it come from, and why it's relatable now. So you have to meet these kids where they're at, but you also have to show them that these experiences don't make you who you are. I walked the
right,
same miles they walk, but
Mm-hmm.
I found my purpose very early on and I ran with it. So every Saturday when they come, they could see people who look like them, who lived in their world, but they're all successful in their own right.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
you you gotta meet these kids where they're at. We ain't had no social media and all them strippiness when we were around
Mhm.
in that prime. So the
Mhm.
things like cyberbullying and these group chat, we
Yeah.
didn't have those issues, but I'm listening to them and I'm talking to them every day. So I know the people, I know the kids, I know what the problem are, and I'm educating them as if they were my children. And one thing with
Mhm.
kids, they know who with them. They know
Yeah.
who is genuine. And once they
Mhm.
feel that love, they are with you. All my kids who I've had with me, and you hear I call them my kids, not my
Yeah.
patients.
Yeah.
All my kids who've been with me since I started here 10 years ago, and I'm going to tear up right now. They may not be my clients now,
Yeah.
but they
Right.
still check for me and I check for them. Each and one
Awesome.
of them, when they get on a roll or when they graduate, if they not texting me themselves, they
Yeah.
hit me on Facebook or the parents are because they know I'm genuine. And that brings joy to my heart. That's why I could
That's
get up every day and do this for the rest of my life.
amazing.
And that's
Amazing.
that's amazing. And that's you're definitely a resource that we obviously need in our community. We need more Michelle Martin and Kyla speak to this all the time. You know what I mean? I mean, we always focus on the athletes and the entertainers, and rightfully so, they've earned it. You know what I'm saying? But we also want to show our children the Michelle Martin-Dowes of the world so that they could know that there's more avenues to success and you're a benefit to your community because, like you said, you look like them, you could walk the same miles as them, so you know how to, I don't want to say treat them, but you know how to be with and assist them on their journey. One question from the inside chat I wanted to ask you was, how do you identify when a friend or family member is experiencing depression or anxiety, and what are some of the suggestions to help them get help, especially if they don't talk about it?
So that happens a lot. And that's probably 60% of the work that I do with adults. So if you notice a loved one has shifted behaviorally, meaning they become more isolative, they sleeping more, they smoking more, they're drinking more, they're getting angry very easily agitated, then you know something is going on. I will say a lot of people know, especially in that age group from 20 to about 45, 50, they're open to getting help. It's just how you
Mm.
present it and how you come at them. You can't say, yeah, my son, you look crazy. That ain't gonna work. But they want
I've been doing it
somebody.
wrong this whole time. Shit.
They want somebody to talk to. And if you're a little on the fence, what the calls I get, because I always say I'm the people's choice. When it comes to the
Mm.
folks in the community, they know me and they know how to find me. So they might ask me just to come to the house. And I've done that. I've came to the house where the people cooling out and I talk to them, even if they ain't coming to me. I could refer you to somebody who I trust. So if you're in a situation where you feel the family member won't come to an office, reach out to a clinician because a lot of them, at least I do for certain, and my office, we do house visits and we could break that stigma very easily.
That's awesome.
One one more question I have. This is from the public chat. Well, it's a statement, I guess. It says also mental health professionals get more money for having clients with certain diagnoses. This that causes a lot of misdiagnosing. Is this something that happens as well?
Yes, so autism are those chronic mental health conditions.
Mm-hmm.
You can treat a child for behavioral issues and they'll come in, they'll do their play therapy, and they could probably do well and benefit and function in community. And if you have a child who has autism, that means they have to get many services to be able to function in the community. So sometimes it's financially feasible from a business standpoint to diagnose that child with autism spectrum disorder, even though they might just be socially awkward or having difficulty transitioning or having anger issues. So they don't warrant that diagnosis. But some people, I'm not saying, I've seen it. I'm just saying there is a likelihood that can happen that they would do that to benefit financially. So I always
Right.
tell parents, you can't just settle. I hear people all the time say the doctor say, the doctor say. I always tell people doctors are human too, and they make
So
mistakes too.
Yeah.
you,
So
you
what
know
does
what I
that look
wanted to
like?
speak on? Go
Real,
ahead.
real quick, Red. Sorry. And then
Mm.
remember what you're going to say, Red, man. So how
Right.
does that look? Ain't get much doctors I trust like that. I can't afford a second opinion. So if my insurance paying for this, if I get insurance, or if I come out of my pocket for this, and they tell me my child have autism, how do I dispute that? What does disputing that look like?
Kyle, and that's our family cry right now here.
Mm,
A lot of people don't have health care.
Right.
So once they get this referral, they're going to pay for this one visit, they have to stick with it. And that is what hurts my heart. So there are very limited people, but there are some programs who would do a second opinion pro bono, but it comes from who you know, who's advocating for you, is dog eat dog. So what
Right.
many parents just do is they just settle. They put their
mm,
child in special education even though they don't need to be. So it's hurtful and it's a real issue. I don't know if it's something that's happening globally, but it certainly happened here in the Virgin Islands.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Red. You had a question.
So yeah, along the lines of autism, one time when my daughter were younger, they had this like autism marathon, and I don't know autism. The only thing I knew about autism was like a physical appearance, right? Which isn't true. There's a
Right.
large spectrum, right? So, but I didn't know. I'm ignorant to the fact. So we gone on the walk, and I just looking at all these children. And there's so many children that don't have the look, and I just looking at them like, am I autistic? Because I feel like I was doing exactly what these children were doing with their parents. You know what I'm saying? So, is there? And I know you mentioned like the misdiagnosis of autism and just being overly or whatever other things there have been, and I feel like in school, not that we were artistic, but there was a lot of us that knew a person like you at the time that we went into school that I feel like would have helped us further ourselves than where we are now. Can you speak to the different spectrums of autism so
Absolutely.
that a person who was as ignorant as me don't just go look?
Right.
Right.
Right. So you're correct. There is a spectrum of autism. You have what we would call, I say, clinically significant, and these may be children or adults who present themselves as what we would say stereotypical. They may be nonverbal, no eye contact. They may stem, which means if they get overstimulated, you might see hand flapping or walking on their tippy toes. Very textbook definition of
Mhm.
autism. And then you have kids who are low on the spectrum. And oh, they used to call this Asperger's. This may be a term you all are familiar with.
Right.
Um, what we diagnose anyone off of is called the DSM-5. And so that has now changed. There is no low and high in the diagnosing world. Even though I may say it, according to my medical records, a child is autistic. They don't say
Mhm,
high or low. So they got rid of the term Asperger's, but I still use it interchangeably so the family can understand that they are low on the spectrum. And this
mhm,
may be
Right.
a child who has limited speech or stems when they get nervous or doesn't have friends and rather engage in isolative behavior, solo playing. They don't know how to meet new people or engage in friendship or even keep friends. But with time, and this is recent, these kids now are so aware and they're
mhm,
so encouraging. So even though a child may be low on the spectrum with autism and they don't know how to initiate friendship, they have friends because their classmates are encouraging. And we come from a small community. These kids probably went lockout together and then they go
Mhm.
con crying or lockout part two, what they call it, and Charlotte. So I know Billy on the spectrum. He been in kindergarten with me, and I know how to deal with Billy. So Billy has friends, and that's why I love this community because we are aware of a lot of the kids who are diagnosed with being on the spectrum, and we have been very supportive as a community.
Okay, that's
to touch
great.
on
That's good to
that,
hear.
Michelle, what you said, the education when it comes to autism and autistic kids in our community now, as far as people understanding it. and people having that level of patience with those kids is so much better now than how it used to be. And it comes from a place of, before, I think it came from a place of ignorance. We didn't understand what they were going through. We didn't understand what they were suffering with. So I was on a flight the other day, and I was sitting I was sitting next to an autistic child, and she was having a tough time on the plane when we were landing. And I was looking around, and the level of support that everyone in that interim area was giving to that mom was just so encouraging. And it was just, man, these are strangers that don't know nobody from nobody. If you've been on a flight before, when you hear a crying child, usually you'll get annoyed. But clearly, that wasn't this situation. Everyone was just so supportive. Everyone was asking, "Mom, you need this, you need that. You want me to hold this? You want me what we could do?" And
Right.
that speaks to the understanding of this condition that's going around now, and how common it is now, and everybody having that empathy for these kids. So I love
Well,
what you said, and I love how how loud you are about it. Go ahead, Michelle.
yeah, the numbers are alarming. I have
Hmm.
a colleague who comes here quarterly from West Virginia, and she's worked all over the nation and says, I've never seen numbers like this in my life. So I say that to say, now it's not just that disorder that you heard about. You know somebody with it. It's
Yeah,
starting to
yeah,
hit close to home, and you
yeah,
see things differently because now a lot of us are living with it.
yeah, yeah. And that's facts. And again, like I say, where we come from, we used in our time we used to make fun of those type of kids. We would say it in our language when we refer to somebody that doing something weird. We would call them the R word, that type of stuff. So to see how far we've came to where we are now, we still got places to go and we still have room to go. But this is why these conversations and your line of work is so important, because now people could understand. Like I read something online. I had a conversation. Somebody posted something about autism, and I can't remember what it is they had said, but it was from a place of ignorance. They didn't understand what it was. And then I went through the comments, and the comment section, everybody was just educating a person. Nah, that ain't what it is. That's not what's going on. Nah, that's you can't say that, And it wasn't a place of attack of like, what I mean, what you doing? Delete this. No, it was a place of clearly you don't understand. Let me help you understand it.
Right.
And that's why, like I said, these conversations are super, super important, man, and really near and dear to me, for real.
Yeah, I happy knowledge read about it and me being educated myself. I feel like my uncle let me to have autism with an uncle, and that really wasn't it. For real, I dead serious. Like when I looking back at things, I'd be like, these people here really didn't know what any of. I don't know if
No,
anybody had anything.
yeah.
They just used to clump everybody into one behavioral
Right.
pile. You know what I'm
Right.
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like, they're in this disgusting pile or mischievous pile or hard of hearing pile. You see what I'm saying? Without really doing the work to find out why this
Exactly.
person behavior slightly off from the others. We just used to get pushed. Cause I know some people that were in special ed that didn't belong in special ed
Facts.
at all.
Absolutely.
And I don't like special ed because to be honest, I had one time in elementary, I went special ed for like a week. And I voluntarily put myself in special ed and I asked stupid for a reason. As I said to myself, if I doing algebra and and these people just counting blacks and passing to the next grade, then I need to count blacks and pass to the next grade too.
Well,
Right? So that's what the stigma we had back
yeah,
then thinking. You see what I'm saying?
right.
Versus with the openness and the dialogue and just having these
Yeah, it's
right.
much different now. And believe it or not,
Mm.
a lot of the kids who are on the spectrum are brilliant.
Smart. I was just
Right.
going to say that.
Brilliant.
Like when you talk about people that got diagnosed with Asperger's, like man like Elon Musk, he was diagnosed with Asperger's disease. So
Right.
like
Right.
that's why we have to really preserve these kids and understand what they're going through before we box them. Because no, if somebody had boxed in Elon, he wouldn't have been Elon today. So we have to really, really work with what these kids have and figure out what their strengths are,
Absolutely.
and then put them in them environments that they could thrive. Because
Right.
The neurodivergent mind is not a weakness. Like at the end of the day, these kids are so brilliant when they focus on the thing that they really care about, my boy.
Yeah,
They're
they could
super, super,
flourish.
super smart. Super
And
smart.
The thing about it too is resources. Elon had resources,
correct,
Facts,
correct.
facts,
right?
facts,
Because
facts.
what people don't touch on is special education is also for gifted kids too. That's all it
Yes.
Mm,
is. The special education. That means they're not in the bubble with the rest of us. They're
Hmm.
outside of it. And a
Yes.
real trained special education teacher, they know how to modify the curriculum for that child. So a lot
Amazing.
of people don't even touch on it. They just hear like, the short boss.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
of them are extremely gifted. I have a child right now in the BBI, and the parents could let me speak to him. He is about 6 years old, and he could read on a 10th grade reading level. Is that not insane? And this is before he was the age of 6. He's 6 now, but we tested him when he was in pre-K going into kindergarten. Phenomenal. Now, can he
Hmm.
have a conversation about what he read? No. He's still working towards that. But his vocabulary and his ability to read and comprehend is certainly up there for a child his age.
wow.
Amazing. And that's
Okay.
why it's super important to like I said, man, we need people like you in the community. So these kids aren't just lumped in a section and just tossed to the side and be like, okay, you in this section and this is what you're gonna do and this is where you're gonna be.
Correct.
Because I feel like we've done a disservice to a lot of kids from our generation that probably could have been great if they had the resources that they needed to function in this world, but
Correct.
they weren't offered those resources. So
Right.
therefore, they just got to figure out life in whatever capacity they could figure it out and be, not be a menace to success to society or not be a burden to somebody, which is tough. So these conversations are important, man. So we could bring that awareness to these type of issues and show how important your work is, man. And I really hope that this conversation inspired some other folks to really seek this line of work and we could grow this thing community wide.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thing I would like to say after talking to you, and I know we're a small community, and I think you grew up in what I would call the populist generation. You know what I mean? Like you were right on the cusp of discovering what do you call those things? High five and
Yeah,
all
yeah,
those
yeah.
other
Black
things.
planet or
Like
hi. Yeah.
we were at, started that youthfully, right? So you've been prevalent. Our generation is prevalent, right? But I will say, talking to you today, you need to invest in your social media presence. So, when I watch social media, I see people that talk like you, but they're from New York or they're from
Yeah.
Ohio. And I think it would be really beneficial if, and I know you have a lot going on because you service to
Man, Red Man.
Atola and the United States Virgin Islands St. Thomas. And I feel like it will be so refreshing and gratifying to hear a voice like ours talking and speaking to the plights that we have in our community that kind of hold back mentally and I feel like your voice will be needed. So
Listen,
Definitely.
on
your page
everything
may
that I love,
bust and keep going.
on everything I love, when I was driving to log in today, I said, boy, I only doing this for Kylie now. Do not like these things. I get anxiety every time I have to do public speaking. People do not know that, but I do not like it. And I said, you know
Hmm.
what's funny? I do so much. I do so much. I sometimes feel so sorry for my son because I am almost everywhere. And I don't record nothing. It's
Hmm.
all word of mouth. People just know what I'm doing because they see me. But nationally, I don't post anything. And
Yeah.
on the way here, on God, Redman, I told myself, you know what? For 2025, I'm gonna start to post these things because people don't know they
Please,
Yeah.
exist.
And as
yes,
as your business coach,
Dare you
Michelle,
say that?
there
as
you
your
go.
business coach, I got you. We gonna start that. Oh, you don't worry. I gonna be flooded. I gonna get tired of Michelle voice just now. Don't worry. I get you started out. I get you
So
started out.
It's a
Hey,
challenge.
One
But we have a
start.
question here, a really good question. I
Uh,
want I want you to answer before we bust off, Michelle. Are there IEPs and 504s in the USVI, as far as in the school systems?
Right. So, yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Sure.
Like anywhere in the nation, in the US, it takes a long time to get an IEP or a
Mhm,
504 plan because there's hundreds of thousands of kids who need them and there's a
mhm,
process to obtain.
mhm.
So the quickest route is to get accommodations. And once you get those accommodations in place, you can kind of wait until the IEP or 504 plan goes into play. I also have to say, remember you talked about getting that second opinion and getting evaluated and insurance?
Yeah.
Many of the kids who need an IEP or a 504 plan do not have insurance. So they
Mhm.
sometimes have to wait 2 years to get evaluated for free. By then, they've already stayed back two
Yeah.
times. So you
Yeah.
see how this is just a poor cycle. And in the BVI, the Virgin Islands Red Man, um, IEP and 504 plans are implemented, yes, but it's very new, very, very new. I don't even think it's been happening more than 5 years, perhaps. I know Dr. Mike for the Wellness Center, when he started in the BVI, he was able to put a system in place where kids were getting evaluated and getting put on. But again, it's a long process because it's not that many providers to test and evaluate the kids. And when you are on the IEP, there's not any occupational therapist or speech therapist to provide the services that's on the IEP.
And that's great because somebody just asked about, are there enough BCBAs and behavioral therapists in and RBTs in the VA? No.
So 30% of what I do is recruiting. Maybe more than half of my team on both islands do not live here because of
Wow.
that. I have to
Wow.
fly people in weekly to
Mm,
provide services. And again, these aren't things that I post, but it took a long time to advocate to even get these people licensed and allowed and lobbied. Y'all don't know the work. And this is
mhm.
2025, and they've just started to be allowed to come into the territories.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, this was a really, really impactful conversation, man.
very
And
much
it's
so.
so important. It's so important. Your voice so important, Michelle. As far I don't always I could, like you say, start where you are. I don't always talk about where I is and what it is I doing. Prior to me coming out here and talking about how important our finances was, how important our credit was, really wasn't a space for that, bro. And within our community. So just me being vocal about it and just talking and saying, hey guys, get our credit straight. This is how you could do it. Da, 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 da. I, I feel like now my little voice has changed the viewpoint of a lot of people in the community, and they're taking the finances serious, they're taking the credit serious, they're taking generational wealth serious, and now people more leaning towards, you know what I mean, a better successful path for themselves and their family. Still, I have to say, your voice is important. Your voice is very important. What we talk about here today, very important, and it needs to be amplified. So, as busy as you don't get, I know it hard, I know it tough, I know you don't like public speaking, but hearing somebody, you know what gonna happen? People, somebody that was suffering, or not the suffering, or they're struggling with just, I need to talk to somebody. After they hear you, like, they go talk to shit.
Yeah, that
That's
happens.
what gonna happen now, you know. So it's important for you to let your voice be heard. That's my message to you, and we gonna get you started out on your social media presence. Don't worry,
Thank you guys, and thank
But
you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it.
for sure.
right, and I really wanted to just add on to what Kyle was saying, and just to kind of let you know how important it is. A lot of us, like I would see somebody speak on a certain topic from a professional perspective, and then I would share it with Kyle to see what Kyle's thoughts are. You see what I'm saying? But once again, these people are outside the scope of our community, which
Right.
is more nuanced than theirs or different, slightly different, right? It needs a personal touch. So, and all I do all day long is scroll social media content and topics and things that we want to talk about, and it would be
Ah,
very healthy to see you your real pop up on certain subjects, whether it be relationship or autism or school
Right.
or any of the challenges that we face in the community, rotate throughout the timeline will be very helpful and make people feel comfortable about coming, not
Yes.
only you but anyone, about their issues, and sometimes people use that as therapy themselves. You see what I'm
Right.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, with Kyle and that, I mean, it is very impactful that your voice is heard, and especially for our young kids, not just the ones that are artistic or behaviorally challenged, but the ones that are not. So they know how to operate around people who
Right.
have behavioral challenges or artistic. You know what I'm saying? It's just not for this person. Your message is not for the person that needs healing, but also for the people who are healed so they know how
Right.
to handle people who are not healed
And have that
Correct.
or
empathy.
Correct.
themselves, because you could unheal yourself. Being
Right.
not knowing how to handle someone who is not healed, you definitely could disrupt yourself from what you're.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a whole other dynamic with relationships. So we'll talk about that another day. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, 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 yeah. I've
Uh,
been doing the walk.
Yo, and again, man, these space is important, guys. I don't make it my business to highlight these type of. Michelle, we even talk about the income and how successful you in what it is you're doing is, and that's not for us to really dive into. But it's very important that the people. This is for everybody watching. If you are doing something great, you're from a community and you elsewhere doing something great, you don't think your community need them services, bro? You don't think you will be doing your community a service if you come back and as you understand your community, you know what's going on, you know what the struggles are. So
Correct.
you in Miami or Florida or Atlanta doing whatever it is you're doing, give it a little bit of thought about coming back home and contributing to a thriving community in the USVI where you're from or the BVI guy. Again, as I belong, nobody can tell me nothing. Okay, I don't get my card. It's up as I belong.
Red man, you want to see Kyle walking around Tatola last week,
Oh,
like he
You're
was.
telling me about it.
Yeah.
Jealousy,
oh,
you're telling me you're
oh,
walking from there.
oh. Think it's a
Hey,
game. But for real, so like real talk is really, really good and refreshing having you on, and hopefully it inspires everyone else that's doing amazing work in the community to put it out there. We have to let other people know. Not, you know what our problem is, home? Not even a problem, but an issue. And rightfully so, we are a small community. We don't want to brag about what it is we're doing, number one. We don't want to come off
Right.
braggadocious. So
Right.
sometimes when we're doing dope stuff, we wouldn't highlight it because we don't want it to be taken as, oh, she bragging, oh, she
Mhm.
full of herself, or whatever
Right.
the case may be. Forget all that. Whoever it is feeling that's your intent, they have some issues within themselves that they got to fix. But what's more important is that person are hearing the message that need your assistance and need your help, that they could hear it. But if we ain't pointing the greatness that we're doing behind the scenes out for people to know and have access to, they would never know. And they'll just continue suffering in silence, man. So I
That's
really
good.
proud of you for coming, for really tapping in and
Thank you.
accepting the invitation and
Thank
being
you
here.
so much.
be
For sure.
grateful that
For sure.
you're there with us. Thank you so much.
All right.
So
Thank you,
when I
guys.
reach out, Tito say my son listen, reach out to her manager, don't be messaging my artist directly. What you think this is, my son? So large up to the manager too for allowing this to happen.
Right. Yeah, the
And
manager.
the manager,
he,
the
he told
manager.
me, he told me, I have to say, he is the reason why I am a good psychologist today. I read it right now.
You had you had practice on him.
That's exactly what he just said.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess he's responsible for all his levels of patience, buddy. All
Oh,
right, Tito.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
No problem, no problem. But guys, that's a wrap. We're gonna let Miss Martin-Dowe. I'll see him that he reach. We're gonna
Yes,
let before Tito chime in, we're gonna bust off and edit so he ain't nothing to say. We're gonna let Dr. Martin-Dowe bust off. And again, thank you so much for everything that you do and all that you've done and what you're continuing to do. Guys, it's a wrap for the oh, we have one more important question, Michelle. The
Uh-huh.
currency exchange. Currency, we know currency as um exchange of money. We know currency to mean money, but on the Caribbean Currency Podcast, currency could be anything of value. It could be love, it could be time, it could be knowledge, it could be power. What's your most valuable form of currency?
Peace. Peace
Peace.
and a sense of purpose.
Hey, I like that. That's a first time for that one they read. Nobody
Yeah,
ever
it's
said peace before.
priceless. It's
listen,
priceless. And I'm
Facts,
listen.
facts,
grateful.
facts. That's
I
an awesome one.
to achieve peace than it is for man to achieve peace. I
It
would
can be
Hey,
achieved though. It can be achieved.
it could be
Yeah,
achieved.
yeah. Peace and purpose.
Peace and purpose. I love that. I love that. All right. Well, guys, it's a wrap. A lot of people just reached the late to the party. This live will be posted online. You guys could still see it. If you missed it, you can watch it from the beginning. From the beginning. Really, really good conversation. And it won't be the last conversation that we have with Michelle because it's an ever evolving topic. And I'm gonna be seeing a lot of Michelle on the socials pretty soon because me and she gonna have a conversation just now and we're gonna run this thing up and we're
Right,
gonna make it happen.
the
right.
time the next time we have a and we're going to take all 55 veteran post them and we're going to read them back to her and then she will assess them for from a PhD perspective.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying?
Jesus.
That's the next time we have you on. 'Cause I get
That
them
should be fun.
saving.
Yeah, that's it.
We need a glass of wine for that one. That should
I
be
tell
fun.
you. All right, guys, we're gonna sign out now, man. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we're gonna talk to you soon. See you next week on the next episode of Currency Exchange.